Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Jim Gishwin here, retired career intelligence analyst in the Pentagon under Admiral John Butts and under Reagan back in the day. Anyway, I was wrong, but I was right when I told you he plays chess. Trump plays chess when others think he's playing checkers. The meeting in Anchorage was actually in Elmundorf Air Force Base with Putin. It was actually his win, I think, because he really put him on the spot. He put Putin on the spot. Okay, now it's all up to Putin. Everyone will see that it's up to Putin, and Trump can walk away from this. Okay, he can walk away from it easily. Now, the one thing I didn't like about that, of course, and I still didn't like, is our involvement in the peacekeeper force. It has a way of getting more involved than what people initially want. Okay, it always has been. You know, anytime you set something up like that, people, when you give people power, they want more power. You go through life, you're always sitting there fighting the power from above. Okay, the government oppressing you. Or what Reagan once said, the scariest things in the world was when the government shows up and says, "We're here to help you." Yeah, right. Kind of like Newsom helping the people out in the burned out areas of Southern California by forcing them to sell the land to the state so the state can turn around and sell it and make money. Isn't that something? Isn't he a wonderful guy? Oh my God. And he's running for president. I mean, we got two communists running for mayors, one in Minnesota, one in New York City, for God's sake. You know, back in the day, I sat there and swore I was a Cold War warrior. We were fighting communism. I sit there and get out, and then we had this guy, Brennan, who's a communist, sitting there, director of the CIA. I couldn't frickin' believe it. Unfucking believable. Okay? That someone like that would be put in that position. And now we're finding out how involved he was in all these other scandals. And he was very involved. Can't believe they found a full room full of burn bags, for God's sake, of all the super sensitive emails and everything else, all the paper. They got the paper trail to prove everything, and that proved everything Trump said was right. And I'm sitting there taking a Harvard course. And I think they did this thing back during Trump's first term. And I'm telling you, this guy, he's got Trump derangement syndrome. My professor got Trump derangement syndrome. It's a Harvard course, so of course I expected that. I took it on purpose to sit there and give him trouble. Okay? And I am giving them trouble. Okay? About the 6th January thing, everything else. About Nancy Pelosi admitting her fault in it, in that recorded thing she did in her car talking to her daughter, for God's sake. And then them destroying all the films and all the files before the Republican Congress came in and took over. Come on. People aren't stupid, okay? And I got this one female in one of my classes. They're 11th graders this year. She just sits there and thinks that shouting over someone, okay, with what she thinks. She goes, "Oh, Trump was indicted and he was found guilty on 34 counts." Look, lady, I didn't even get a chance. Now, she's yelling and screaming at me. I let my students do that sometimes. Okay? I ain't going to let her get away with it again. Anyway, she's sitting there saying 34 counts. I'm sitting there going, yeah, but look, they violated the 8th Amendment, okay, about excessive bails, and that was thrown out. It's going to be thrown out in appeal. The one in Washington, D.C. was thrown out, okay, and the one for the Mar-a-Lago raid down in Florida, that was thrown out, okay. The judge dismissed that, said it was crazy. And on Trump's third impeachment on his first term, you know, when he was just getting out and they wanted to impeach him again, you know, for 6th January or something like that, Judge Roberts sat there and came out and said, I have to sit there and preside over this? He said, I'm not presiding over a kangaroo court. Oh. Anyway, and if the Chief Justice can understand that, everyone else can. They've seen this. They've tried everything they can to destroy this man. They've even tried to kill him twice. And I'm sure there was someone behind it that was involved in all of this deep state stuff. Okay? Even if they had to go through another country. And we're finding out that Hillary was the one that was actually doing all this Russia stuff. She gave Russia half of our uranium reserves, for God's sake, and that Uranium One thing. And that's not called treason? Come on. At least the Republican Party and at least Trump has instituted an era, not necessarily a golden era, but an era of common sense. The common sense you and I have to sit there and figure things out, and he sits there and realizes it. See, the good thing about Trump, he doesn't make speeches. He gets up there and stands there and talks to people. It's like he's talking to you in the living room, even though he's standing on a stage. And that's why he's got followers. And that's why he got people sitting there abandoning the Democratic Party. We've gotten over 30% of the black and Hispanic vote. Okay? And this girl in my classroom says, well, I said, well, he's got so much black support. And she said, not anymore. What? What did he do that was not anymore? He's done everything that people wanted him to do. They're all 80-20 issues. Being safe in your neighborhood, that's an 80-20 issue. Okay? Democrats want that too. And he's more of a constitutionalist than anyone else. You talk about having the most open government. He sits there and signs bills right in front of the daggone press and sits there and answers their questions for 2 hours. He doesn't care how long it's going to take. Okay? He enjoys sitting there answering questions from the press. Doesn't try to avoid them at all. He sits there and stops and talks to people he passes and says, what do you think of this? He asks the Secret Service people, what do you think of this? You know, if you watch The Old Apprentice, he'd sit there and get all the information he could, just like he did with, what's her name? Who was the one with the big butt? Well, anyway, you know, that famous person. Daughter of a lawyer, okay? And from the OJ thing. Daughter of a lawyer from the OJ thing. I'm getting there. The name's up there. I just can't get it out. Okay? But she went up for the prison reform because Biden's big accomplishment in Congress back in the 90s was locking up more black people than before. And he bragged about they could be locked up for jaywalking. He bragged about this stuff. And of course, then you had Harris. She's locked up half of San Francisco for minor possessions of pot and everything else. And anyway, and it still didn't help San Francisco. They still sit there and shoot up right outside the senator's home. Okay? Anyway, the hypocrisy. Oh, God. Trump is the most honest guy there is, most open guy. Okay? He gets convicted of a victimless crime. The bank sat there and said they went after him to get the loan. They wanted him to. They considered him a whale. Like the people in the casinos consider someone that's a heavy gambler a whale. They consider him a whale. They wanted him as a client. And he paid it back with interest. They said, yeah, we'll do another loan with him. And that judge has that term, oh, God, to appraise Marjorie Post's old property that Trump took over and improved at $113 million when vacant lots down there go for 300, 400, 500 million in that general vicinity. And there are some vacant lots down there, and you can sit there and Google it yourself and go in and look at the plat and see how much those things are going for. So I'm not just making this up. And the judge sits there and just made up that figure. I don't know how the hell he came up with that. And then saying that Trump inflated the value of Mar-a-Lago at almost $1 billion. Yeah, it is worth almost $1 billion. It's worth more than that now that he's president again. Okay? Anyway. We're finding out more and more. All this stuff is coming out, people, and there is some accountability. Even if we're past, look, treason is 10 years, okay? Treason is 10 years. And we'll get another guy, just like Hillary's guy, that went and stuffed all that classified stuff down in his socks, okay? We'll find some of this stuff. John Bolton, I'm sure, has some classified material. He's pretty stupid to have that stuff at home, but I bet you he does. He probably figures he is above it all. Okay? He's a pretty stuffy neocon. He's a neocon, yeah. He's exactly what Trump called him. Trump sits there and says Bolton. He'd like to have Bolton standing there next to him when he's talking to foreign people, because everyone knew that Bolton was such a war hawk that they were afraid of Bolton, not Trump. So he kind of used him. He said he served a purpose at the time. Anyway. Well, folks, I'm done with my rant. I'm done with my rant. Okay? And yeah, he's doing well. I'm sorry. That was not a Russian win in Anchorage. I take that back. I apologize. I was wrong. Anyway. The more Trump stays in office, the more we're finding out all of this nasty, dirty crap that went on in the past. This has got to stop. There's got to be accountability, or else they'll do it again, and you know they'll do it again. Okay? Power corrupts completely. And it corrupted them completely. Okay? That's one thing. See, Trump had power before he became a politician. He's never become a politician. He's still a businessman. He's sitting there in his seventh heaven, sitting there trying to design this ballroom next to the White House as an adjacent building to the White House. Unbelievable. He's even involved in redoing the gift store. The guy's a contractor. What can you say? And he's sitting there rebuilding America. And he's going to do it city at a time, too. Well, God bless you. God's given us a wonder. There's no sense trying to figure out what's going on. Trump's got it all in hand. You take care, God bless you, and remain. I remain your humble servant. Okay? And you love you all.